great. Thank you.
Yes. Yes.
Looking for little ones?
There. Wait a minute, here's the problem. Got your Coke card. There. Okay?
Yep.
Is there anything that you want me to do during the service?
I'll help you
Help undress it.
Yeah, help with maybe help with the Torah and yeah, the dressing and undressing and right.
Wave at me if there's anything else. I mean, we don't have to open up.
Are you going to help them dress the Torah?
I'm doing the. I'll do whatever you want.
Well, just keep look first. Yeah, we didn't even think this was going to be here tonight. So,
Really?
well, we didn't know if they went out of town before she has her surgery next week. I didn't know she was having surgery. And I do. But you know, we got back from, and everybody got COVID. And then you got COVID. I know, and then you get it.
Welcome everybody and Shabbat Shalom, this hot summer service. And we have the A team over there and the B team over here, so hopefully this will work nicely. If y'all will turn to page 120 for the candle blessings, and I'd like to invite Sandy Hollander to the bema to light the candles and say the blessings.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kidshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu, v'hadlik ner shel Shabbat. Blessed are you, Adonai, our God, sovereign of the universe, who hallows us with mitzvot, commanding us to kindle the lights of Shabbat.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kidshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lahadlik ner shel Shabbat.
Thank you. Page 127. Together on the top. There are days when we seek things for ourselves and measure failure by what we do not gain. On Shabbat, we seek not to acquire, but to share. There are days when we exploit nature as if it were a horn of plenty that can never be exhausted. On Shabbat, we stand in wonder before the mystery of creation. There are days when we act as if we cared nothing for the rights of others. On Shabbat, we remember that justice is our duty and a better world our goal. So we embrace Shabbat, day of rest, day of wonder, day of peace. Linda's going to sing, and we can sing with her our beginning song, which is going to be Ma Tovu, a song we usually don't sing at the beginning of Friday evening services, but it's part of this week's Parashah, and Linda will be chanting it as well, so we thought that it would be nice to sing it at the beginning. If you need the words for Ma Tovu, they're on page 630.
And not only are we doing Ma Tovu, which we don't get to sing that often because it's usually for a Saturday service, we're gonna break loose and do one that's, it's not the usual one we do. It has all the verses. It's by Danny Massing, and feel free to join in because you may recognize it. It is transliterated, and if not, read the English of the verses because it's really lovely. Ma tovu, Ma tovu, ohalecha Yaakov, mishkenotecha Yisrael, Ma tovu, Ma tovu, ohalecha Yaakov, mishkenotecha Yisrael. Ve'ani berov chastecha אהבו ביתך, אשתחווה אל הכל קודשך ביראתך. מה טובו, מה טובו, אוהליך יעקב, משכנותיך ישראל. אדוני אהבתי בעוד ביתך, ומקום משכן כבודך, משכן כבודך. ואני אשתחווה ואכרע, אברכה לפני אדוני עושי. מה טובו, מה טובו, אוהליך יעקב, משכנותיך ישראל. ואני תפילתי לך, אדוני, את רצון. אלוהים ברוב חסדך, אלוהים ברוב חסדך, ענני באמת ישך. מה טובו, מה טובו, אוהליך יעקב, משכנותיך ישראל. מה טובו, מה טובו, אוהליך יעקב, משכנותיך ישראל. משכנותיך ישראל.
Thank you. Beautiful. Turn to page 142, please, for Shalom Aleichem, but we're going to read it in English in the middle together. Peace be to you, O ministering angels, messengers of the Most High, Majesty of majesties, Holy One of blessing. Enter in peace, O messengers of peace, angels of the Most High, Majesty of majesties, Holy One of blessing. Bless me with peace, O messengers of peace, angels of the Most High, Majesty of majesties, Holy One of blessing. Depart in peace, O messengers of peace, angels of the Most High, Majesty of majesties, Holy One of blessing. Page 144 for the Hatzi Kaddish.
יתגדל ויתגדש שמי רבה, ויעמד דברה חירותי וימליך מלכותי, בחייכון וביומכון ובחיי דכו בישראל. בגלה, בגלה, ובזמן קריב, ואמרו אמן. יהי שמי רבה מבורך, לעולם ולעולמי עלמיה. יתברך, יתברך וישתבח, ויתפאר וירומם ויתנשא, ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל, שמי דקדושה בריחו. לילה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה, תושבחתה ונחמתה, דמירן בימה, ואמרו אמן.
Please stand and turn to 146 for the Shema and its blessings.
Baruch hu et Adonai hamevorach. Baruch Adonai hamevorach leolam vaed. Praise Adonai, to whom praise is due forever. Praise be Adonai, to whom praise is due, now and forever.
Page 147 at the bottom. Let's read together. O God, you are as near as the very air we breathe, yet farther than the farthermost star. We yearn to reach you. We seek the light and warmth of your presence. Though we say you are near, we are lonely and alone. Oh, let our desire be strong, that it will tear the veil that keeps you from our sight. Let your light release our darkness and reveal the glory and joy of your presence. Page 148, we're going to read the Ma'ariv Aravim together in English at the bottom. Blessed are you, Adonai, our God, ruler of the universe, who speaks the evening into being, skillfully opens the gates, thoughtfully alters the time and changes the seasons, and arranges the stars in their heavenly courses according to plan. You are creator of day and night, rolling away darkness and darkness from light, transforming day into night, and distinguishing one from the other. Adonai Tzvaot is your name. Ever-living God, may you reign continually over us into eternity. Blessed are you, Adonai, who brings on evening. Baruch atah Adonai, Ha'ma'ariv Aravim. Page 150. Ahavat Olam.
Ahavat Olam, Beit Yisrael, Amecha ahavta, Amcha ahavta, Torah umitzvot, Chukim umishpatim, Otanu limadeta, Otanu limadeta. Al kein Adonai Eloheinu b'shachmenu uvkumenu nasiach b'chukecha v'nizmach b'divrei Toratecha uv'mitzvotecha le'olam va'ed ki heim chayenu ve'orech yameinu uvahem negei yomam v'layla negei yomam v'layla ve'ahavatcha al tasir mimenu le'olamim Baruch atah Adonai Ohev Amo Yisrael Ohev Amo Yisrael.
Page 152 for the Shema. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Hear, O Israel, Adonai is our God, Adonai is one. Baruch Shem Kavod Malchuto Le'olam Va'ed. Blessed is God's glorious majesty forever.
Forever and ever. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Baruch Shem Kavod Malchuto Le'olam Va'ed.
You may be seated. On the next page, 154, let's read the Ve'ahavta in English at the bottom of the page. You shall love Adonai your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your might. Take to heart these instructions with which I charge you this day. Impress them on your children. Recite them when you stay at home and when you are away, when you lie down and when you get up. Bind them as a sign on your hand, and let them serve as a symbol on your forehead. Inscribe them on the doorposts of your house and on your gates. Thus you shall remember to observe all my commandments and to be holy to your God. I am Adonai your God, who brought you out of the land of Egypt to be your God. I am Adonai your God. Adonai Elohim Emet. Page 157. Together at the top. Standing on the parted shores of history, we still believe what we were taught before ever we stood at Sinai's foot, that wherever we go, it is eternally Egypt, that there is a better place, a promised land, that the winding way to that promise passes through the wilderness, that there is no way to get from here to there except by joining hands, marching together. Micha Mocha is on page 158.
Mi chamocha ba'elim Adonai, mi chamocha nedar b'kodesh, nora tehilot osef ele, nora tehilot osef ele, malchutecha ra'uvanecha, Bokei ayam, lifnei Moshe u'Miriam, zeli anu v'amru, Adonai yimloch, Adonai yimloch, le'olam va'eh, v'ne'emar kifadad Adonai et Yaakov, Ugalo miyad chazak mimenu, Baruch atah Adonai, Gal Yisrael.
On page 161 at the top, let's read together. Let there be love and understanding among us. Let peace and friendship be our shelter from life's storms. Adonai, help us to walk with good companions, to live with hope in our hearts and eternity in our thoughts, that we may lie down in peace and rise up waiting to do your will. Baruch atah Adonai, haporesh sukat shalom aleinu, ve'al kol amo Yisrael, ve'al Yerushalayim. Bishamru's on page 162.
Vishamru v'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat la'asot et ha-Shabbat ledorotam berit olam. Vishamru v'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat la'asot et ha-Shabbat ledorotam berit olam. Beini uvein b'nei Yisrael oti leolam, oti leolam. Vishamru v'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat la'asot et ha-Shabbat ledorotam berit olam. Ki sheshet yamim asa Adonai et ha-shamayim ve'et ha'aretz, vishamru v'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat la'asot et ha-Shabbat ledorotam berit olam. Uvayom hashvi'i shavat vayinafash, shavat vayinafash, shavat vayinafash. Vishamru V'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat la'asot et ha-Shabbat ledoratam berit olam.
Please stand. The Amidah starts on page 164. We'll sing Tefillah together in Hebrew and English, and then we'll follow with the vote in English in the middle of page 166.
Adonai sifatai tiftach ufi yagid tehilatecha. Adonai, open up my lips that my mouth may declare your praise.
On page 166 in the middle, please, in English. Blessed are you, Adonai our God, God of our fathers and mothers, God of Abraham, God of Isaac, and God of Jacob, God of Sarah, God of Rebekah, God of Rachel, and God of Leah, the great, mighty, and awesome God, transcendent God, who bestows loving kindness, creates everything out of love, remembers the love of our fathers and mothers, and brings redemption to their children's children for the sake of the divine name. Sovereign, deliverer, helper, and shield, blessed are you, Adonai, Sarah's helper, Abraham's shield. Baruch atah Adonai, Magen Abraham, Ve'ezrat Sarah. Together on page 170 at the top. Atah Kadosh, V'shimcha Kadosh, Ukadoshim B'chol Yom Yehalalucha Selah. Baruch atah Adonai, Ha'el HaKadosh. Page 171 at the top. Days pass and the years vanish, and we walk sightless among miracles. God, fill our eyes with seeing and our minds with knowing. Let there be moments when your presence, like lightning, illumines the darkness in which we walk. Help us to see wherever we gaze that the bush burns unconsumed, and we, clay touched by God, will reach out for holiness and exclaim in wonder, how filled with awe is this place, and we did not know it. Baruch atah Adonai, Ha'el HaKadosh. Page 175, Ritzay.
Ritzay, Ritzay, Ritzay Adonai Eloheinu B'yamecha Yisrael U'tefilatam Be'ahava tikabel U'tehi l'ratzon tamid U'tehi l'ratzon tamid Avodat Yisrael Amecha Baruch atah Adonai She'otecha levadecha B'yira navod She'otecha levadecha B'yira navod.
Page 178 for Shalom Rav.
Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Ki ata hu melech Adon L'chol hashalom, ki ata hu melech Adon, l'chol hashalom. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha tasim leolam. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha tasim leolam. V'tov be'einecha levarech et amcha Yisrael b'chol עת ובכל שעה בשלומך. Shalom Rab al Yisrael amcha tasim leolam. Shalom Rab al Yisrael amcha tasim leolam. Tasim leolam. Tasim leolam.
On page 179, grant us peace, your most precious gift, O eternal source of peace, and give us the will to proclaim its message to all the peoples of the earth. Bless our country as a safeguard of peace and advocate among the nations. May contentment reign within our borders, health and happiness within our homes. Strengthen the bonds of friendship and fellowship among all the inhabitants of every land. Plant virtue in every soul, and may the love of your name hallow every home and every heart. Praised are you, Eternal One, who blesses our people with peace. Baruch atah Adonai, Hamevorech et amo Yisrael b'shalom. We now pray silently. You may sit or stand as you feel is appropriate.
Yehiyu leratzon imrefi v'hegyon libi lefanecha Adonai tzuri Adonai tzuri v'goali v'goali.
Thank you. The Torah service starts on page 362. Please rise. Let's read together in the middle of the page. There is none like you among the gods, Adonai, and there are no deeds like yours. You are sovereign over all worlds, and your dominion is in all generations. Adonai reigns, Adonai has reigned, Adonai will reign forever and ever. Adonai will give strength to our people, Adonai will bless our people with peace. Assemble the people, men, women, and children, and the strangers in your cities, to hear, to learn, to revere Adonai your God, to observe faithfully the words of this Torah, and let their children who do not yet know it hear, that they too may learn to revere Adonai your God.
Ki mitzion tetzeh Torah, Ki mitzion tetzeh Torah, udavar Adonai Mirushalayim, Susha'arim Rashechem, Usu Pichei Olam, V'yavo Melech HaKavod. Mihuze Melech HaKavod, Adonai Tzvaot, Hu Melech HaKavod, Selah.
In this scroll is the secret of our people's life from Sinai until now. Its teaching is love and justice, goodness and hope. Freedom is its gift to all who treasure it.
Baruch Shenatan Torah Torah. Baruch Shenatan Torah Torah. Le'amo Yisrael b'kedushato. Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. Echad Eloheinu Gadol Adonenu Kadosh Shemo Gadlul Adonai iti Unromema Shemo Yachdav. Lecha Adonai Hagedula V'Hagibura V'Hatiferet V'Hanetzach V'Hahod. Ki ho b'shamayim uvaretz, ki ho b'shamayim uvaretz. Lecha Adonai hamamlacha, v'yamid na'aseh lechol rosh. Romemu Adonai Eloheinu v'hishtachavu lehar kodsho. Romemu Adonai Eloheinu v'hishtachavu lehar kodsho. Ki kadosh Adonai Eloheinu romemu. Ki kadosh Adonai Eloheinu romemu. Romemu Adonai Eloheinu v'hishtachavu lehar kodsho. Romemu Adonai Eloheinu v'hishtachavu lehar kodsho.
You may be seated. On page 368, Havu Godel Elohim, Utnu Kavod LeTorah. Let us declare the greatness of our God and give honor to the Torah. I'm pleased to call Cindy Simon for Aliyah.
Baruch Hu et Adonai Hamvarach.
Baruch Adonai Hambarach Leolam Vaed.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen.
Oops. I know. It's a lot of chain. Takes a village. Takes a village, exactly. Ma tovu ohalecha Yaakov, mishkenotecha Yisrael. Ki chalim natayu keganod ale nahar, ka'ahalim nata Adonai, ka'arazim ale mayim, yizal mayim midalayav, hazer o b'mayim rabim, vayevrom me'agag malko, v'tinaseh malchuto, el motzio mimitzrayim, ketoafot re'em lo, yochal goyim sarov, ve'etzmetehem yagerem, ve'hitzav yimchatz, karashachav kari, uchlevi mi yekimenu, mevarechecha varuch, ve'orerecha aror.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torat emet v'chayei olam nata b'tochenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
This week's parashah, Balak, contains the beautiful lines Ma Tovu that Linda just chanted and which we sing frequently. In choosing these verses to read from the parashah, we thought that you would enjoy these. The story contains many topics that the rabbis have discussed for millennia. These include the episode of the talking donkey and the graphic image of Pinhas skewering a fellow Israelite and his foreign concubine in corpus delicti. At the beginning of the story, Balak, the king of Moab, becomes concerned that the Israelites will soon overrun Moab and Midian, which are near where they are camping. Balak sends his emissaries to Balaam, a local non-Jewish prophet who apparently is able to talk to God. He wants Balaam, as a mouthpiece of God, to curse the Jews. The Israelites would then presumably lose any upcoming battle when they attempted to overrun Moab. Balaam refuses the first set of Balak's emissaries, saying God will not let him go to Balak. Balak sends a second set of higher-ranked emissaries, promising honor and wealth. After asking God again, God tells Balaam to go to Balak, but only to say what he, God, tells him to. Balaam saddles his donkey, but the donkey refuses to carry him. This is because the donkey sees an angel of God in the roadway with a threatening sword, but Balaam does not. Balaam beats the donkey, who then asks Balaam sorrowfully why he is being beaten. God rebukes Balaam for beating the donkey, shows him the angel, and tells him that if not for the donkey, the angel would have killed Balaam. Later in the story, when Balak repeatedly tells Balaam to curse the Jews, he instead blesses them on 3 separate occasions. The verses that Linda read make up the third and most beautiful blessing. It struck me as odd that when Balaam talks to God after the emissaries ask him to return with them to Balak, he is at first forbidden to go. When the next set of emissaries ask Balaam the same thing as the first set, God says to go with them to Balak, but only to say what he puts in Balaam's mouth. Then, when Balaam goes with the emissaries as God told him to do, God becomes angry with Balaam and puts obstructions in his way, though Balaam has not yet uttered a curse or a blessing on the Jews. Why the inconsistent direction to Balaam from God, and why is he angry when Balaam has followed his instructions? The rabbis provide possible answers. In the first exchange with emissaries, Balaam says he cannot go because the Lord refuses to let him go. But this is not the whole truth. God actually told him he could not go because the Jewish people are blessed and therefore shouldn't be cursed. He did not take personal responsibility and explain the reason God said he could not go. In the second exchange with the second set of emissaries, Balaam should have known he shouldn't be asking God again what God had already decided. Nevertheless, instead of sending the second emissaries away immediately, he asks them to spend the night with him so he can talk to God again to see if he can get permission to go with them to Balak. One verse in the story says Balaam arose, saddled his donkey, and went with the Moabite dignitaries. This verse is interesting. According to the rabbis, this was completely atypical and undignified behavior in the time of Balaam. A well-established prophet should have had his servant saddle the donkey, not do it himself. The self-saddling indicates that Balaam was in a hurry and greedy to go to Balak so that he could amass honor and wealth. This, the rabbi says, is also why Balaam had the second emissary stay the night, so he could see if perhaps God would let him go when asked a second time. Interestingly, in a Torah parallel, there's a similar passage when Abraham also saddles his own donkey in the story of the binding of Isaac. The rabbis contrast Abraham and Balaam. In Abraham's episode, he saddled his own donkey because he was anxious to do God's will immediately. In Balaam's situation, he did this for personal gain. The rabbis also contend that the episode of the talking donkey explains God's change in direction for Balaam. God was concerned about Balaam's greed, pride that he could talk to God, and his high-handed attitude toward the emissaries of Balak. The rabbis postulate that God knew Balaam needed to be taught a lesson. Balaam was shown that he, a prophet, could not see the angel of God in the road at first when a lowly animal could. Not only can God decide which human he would talk to and who or what could see him, but he could even put words in the mouth of a donkey if he wished. At the end of the episode, God rebuked Balaam. He said that the donkey should not have been beaten, as it protected Balaam from being killed by the angel in stopping in the road instead of letting Balaam come upon the angel's sword. Only when Balaam was properly chastised did God know that he was really ready to say reliably what God wanted him to. In this story, I would have never known the implication of saddling one's own donkey, yet that implication would have been obvious to a typical person living in the time of this Torah story. Without very serious study, I probably would not have figured out the point of the talking donkey either. To anyone reading the story in any time, it can be an amusing tale for children about a talking donkey. It can be a parable of the power of God, but the intent is much richer. We modern humans risk missing much of this intent because we have lost the situational contents of what was intended when the story was written. I take this as a lesson to be very careful in trying to interpret the meanings and intents of people who lived in the past. Life was different for them. They knew different things, some of which we no longer know. They, of course, could not know some of the things we now consider obvious and might not accept some of the things we accept as immutable. The farther in the past, the more risk of misinterpreting events, social order, literature, and law in contemporary terms. This is provably true for the times of the Torah. I believe it is also true for more recent times, including the time of the founding of our country. Its societal assumptions, norms, and written documents were all created by people who were very different from us. Some of what they knew is also lost to us. With our modern outlook, we tend to think of the past as times of ignorance and lacking in enlightenment. The past is not always that, but tends to become that way if we try to force past norms into our modern conceptual framework of understanding. I prefer to think of the past as times of difference whose lessons are worth studying for their own sake in their own context. That is the lesson that I learned this week from studying this parashah. Let's turn to page 371 and begin the Mishaberach. On our congregational list for this week, we have Len Anthony, Robert Bugan, Maria Chan, Brittany Elaine Drake, Charlotte Fiwas, Christopher Long, Katrina Joy Rogers, Neil Tannenhouse, Sarah Tova, William Westerman, Ann Westerman, Darrell Abrams, Judy Kotler Goldberg, Lori Brigman, Alan Skeebel, Leica Fruma Bat Bela Rahel, Linnell Bond, Ruth Sollender, Walt Alley, Rosie Katz, Benny Turner, Will Greenman, Amy Wesson, Stanley Weinberg, Abe Factor, Brigitte Altman, Trudy Post, and Susie Kunzman. Are there others who we should be praying for? Yes. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Please join in Mishaberach. Mishaberach Avotenu Mekor HaBracha Leimotenu. May the source of strength, who bless the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say, Amen. Mishaberach imotenu mekor habracha leavotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say, Amen.
Thank you. Let's turn back to page 370 at the bottom for the service to return the Torah to the ark. Please stand.
V'zot Torah asher sam Moshe lifnei bnei Yisrael al pi Adonai b'yad Moshe. Lai 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 ya lai 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 ya lai 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 ya lai 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 ya lai 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 lai.
On page 374. Yehalelu et Shem Adonai ki nisgav shemo levado. Let us praise the name of Adonai, for God's name alone is exalted.
Hodo al eretz v'shamayim, vayarem keren le'amo, tehila l'chol chasidav, livnei Yisrael am kerovo. Hallelujah, 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 hallelujah.
For I have given you good instruction. Do not abandon my Torah. It is a tree of life for those who hold it fast, and all of its supporters are happy. Its ways are ways of pleasantness, and all its paths are peace. Return us to you, Adonai, and we will return. Renew our days as of old.
Etz chaim hi lemachazikim ba v'tomechecha me'ushar deracheha darchei noam v'chol netivoteha shalom. Hashivenu Adonai Elecha Benashuva Chadesh Chadesh Yameinu Chadesh Yameinu Kekedem.
Please remain standing for the Aleinu, which is on page 586.
Aleinu l'shabeach l'adon hakol, latet gedula liotzer breshit, shelo asanu kegoye haratzot, v'lo samanu kemishpachot adama, shelo sam chelkenu kahem, v'gor aleinu kechol hamonam, va'anachnu korim, umishtachavim umodim, lifnei melech Malchei Hamlachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu. V'nemar v'haya Adonai lemelech ol kol haaretz bayom hahu yeh Adonai echad u'shemo echad.
You may be seated. Page 594 on the top. Why should I wish to see God better than this day? I see something of God in each hour of the 24, and each moment then. In the faces of men and women I see God, and in my own face in the glass. I find letters from God dropped in the street, and every one is signed by God's name. And I leave them where they are, for I know that wheresoever I go, others will punctually come forever and ever. I'm going to read the Kaddish list now, and as is our custom, please stand if you wish as I call the name of a person who you are remembering. For this Shabbat, on the Shloshim list, we have Sandra Stein. Those who have yahrzeits are Abraham Antwile, Helen Baginski, Lorraine K. Berenson, Helen Bressert, Matilda Rosenbaum-Karb, Elizabeth Finkel, William Friedman, Yale Glazer, David Donk Gordon, Louise Gordon, Sadie Grabstalt, Bertha Harris, Irene Jacobs, Rudy Kemp, Lena Klar, Anita Klein, Patricia Kornvase, Ben Label, Pearl Brown Lynette, Katie Murfeld, Donna Miller, Yetta G. Parker, Arthur Pritchard, Rose Raphael, Charles Lee Richards, Esther Rosenthal, Samuel Rubenton, Frederick Schlinger, Raleigh Schur, Sally Lynn Schur, Mary Levine Schwartz, Milton Sylvan Simon, Rose Tiras, Alice Van Natta, William E. Weinschenker, and Erna Laseus Zentner. Are there others who are not on the list who we should be remembering today for their yard site? If not, yes? Michael Cates. Harold Eisen and Michael Cates. And now in support, if the whole congregation will stand, and we will say the Mourner's Kaddish. Yit Kadal, V'yit Kadash, Shemei Rabbah, V'yalma, Divrach, Hirite, V'yamlich, Malchute, V'chayechon, Uvyomechon, Uv'chaye, Dechol Beit Yisrael, Ba'agala, Uvizman Kari, V'yamru, Amen. Yehei Shemei Rabbah Mivarach Leolam Olam Maya. Yit Barach V'yishtabach V'yit Pa'ar V'yit Romam V'yit Naseh V'yit Hadar V'yit Haleh V'yit Halal Shemei Dekudisha Barihu Le'ela Min Kol Birchata V'shirata Tushbechata V'nechemata Da'amiran B'alma V'yimru Amen. Yehei Shalama Rabbah Min Shemaya V'chaim Aleinu V'al Kol Yisrael V'yimru Amen. Oseh Shalom B'mromav Hu Ya'aseh Shalom Aleinu V'al Kol Yisrael V'yimru Amen. May their memories be for blessing. Zichroman Livracha. So now we're ready for our closing song, which is going to be the same with a different melody as our opening song. So on page 630, the closing song is Ma Tovu from our Torah reading in Numbers 24.
And trust me, we're doing the short version.
No round?
No, I don't think so. We're going to cut to the chase. Ma tovu ohalecha Yaakov mishkenotecha Yisrael. Ma tovu ohalecha Yaakov mishkenotecha Yisrael.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'ratzavanu v'shabbat kadsho v'ahava uvratzon hintilanu zikarom lema'aseh v'reshit ki hu yom tehila lemikra'e kodesh zecher l'tziat Mitzrayim ki vanu v'acharta v'otanu kidashta mikol hamim v'shabbat kadshecha v'ahava uvratzon
Hinchaltanu, Baruch atah Adonai, Mekadesh HaShabbat. Amen. L'chaim.
Thank you. We have a wonderful challah that I think,
And it's been pre-sliced, so don't everybody run off without taking a piece.
together.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, hamotzi lechem min haaretz. Amen.
Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
That's good. Shabbat shalom.
Rabbi, you did a great job. Thank
Fun.
Ira, it was awesome.
Thank you.
And I love listening to you and,
you. Turn off your mic.
oh,